And hello, fantasy football fans. My name is Gary, aka the IDP Tipster. JJ Winter is not able to be with us tonight. I really wish he was because that's left me driving this bus, and I don't want to crash too soon. But Gridiron, welcome to the Getting Defensive tonight, presented by Gridiron Ratings. Our special guest tonight, and I believe me and Jeff are both excited to have on here, is Shane Barret of the Fantasy Kollectiv and host of Fantasy Nightcap. How you doing, Shane?
I am doing great, and you nailed that. So great job.
It's not over yet.
No, it's not, but that's all right.
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. We've been battling some sickness here at my house. I think it's the flu, but we're all on the tail end of it. So
Yeah. My whole
it's
family just had
much
it
better.
last month. We all
Yeah.
the two of the three tested positive. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm glad to hear that everybody's hopefully doing okay considering.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Hey, I wanted to ask you real quick. You said, you'd mentioned that you'd only played IDP for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really
So
appreciate you coming on and talking to us about it because we'd like
yeah,
to hear that perspective.
Yeah, no, I started a few years ago. My dad added it to our home league redraft league. So I knew a couple of players back then, and then we transitioned that to a different home league because that was more of his work people. Now it's our family league, and so the IDP kind of got transitioned out from that, and I would add it back, but I think my grandfather would have a conniption fit. Um, and but yeah, so I really kind of started getting interested into it there, and then when I finally started playing Dynasty, I found a free IDP Dynasty League with Riddick IDP King on Twitter.
Yeah.
He's the commissioned. Yeah, I really enjoy it. But Gary, as you know, I have to ask a lot of questions about IDP because I'm still not certain on my evaluations of those
Yeah,
players yet.
we've been friends
Which
for a
is
while now on Twitter, as Twitter
yeah.
friends become. And you were actually in one of my leagues last year. I don't know if that
Mhm.
was like a really deep format or not for you. Have you
Uh,
ever played that before or more?
no, I hadn't played that before. But it still tested me. Like it still like pushed me to try and find the right
Right,
players and
right,
right starting
right,
lineups.
right.
I felt like my offense was stacked. And
Yeah,
then it was defense. It was like, all right, who do I start this week? And that's what I'm
yeah.
running into now with like my
Hey,
IDP
that's
leagues
what
that
I
I'm
got
in now.
those start sit charts for. And
Yeah.
you're a friend, man. You can always knock on that door. Hey, I
Yeah.
don't want Jeff to fall asleep on us. And you all know Jeff, right? He's been here for the last few Thursdays talking rookies with JJ Winter. And he's going to talk more rookies tonight on top of a few IDP questions that Shane brought with him. Jeff, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, Gary. Shane, I'm glad to hear you guys are at least on the mend here.
Yeah.
Like Gary, our family just we all battled COVID over the last several weeks here. I'm still clearing my throat a little bit, a little cough here and there, but we're all kind of in the same boat, feeling a lot better. Um, you know, I think everything's really good, but I got to say, most of our thoughts right now are they're with the folks over in the Ukraine and over there in Eastern Europe. A lot of bad stuff going on over there right now, as everyone's aware. So obviously our thoughts are with, any manned military folks that might be headed to places in Europe and anybody that might end up getting deployed into that situation and the folks that are obviously in the firing line in that battle. So we just want to send some positive, thoughts and prayers, and hopefully that thing wraps up quickly and everybody can move on with their lives a little bit.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Amen. All right, so rolling right along. I hope we're going to go ahead and Shane was nice enough, there, being his second year, limited experience, I guess, in IDP. He was nice enough to put some questions together, just a few here, and then we'll get into those rookies that we know everybody wants to hear about. So it's that time of year. All right, so I'm just going to go straight over and let you roll with what you have for us there, Shane.
All right, sounds good. Jeff and Gary, this is something I've struggled with since I started playing Dynasty IDP. How do I value IDP players when trading? I don't get it. I don't like because I think I'll have a stud or somebody who's a decent starter, but I don't know how to value them in a trade.
All right, I guess I'm going to jump on this one to begin with. And I might have a more generic or general way of doing this after playing a couple decades worth of IDP. And that is basically, don't expect, just because you hear that a linebacker 1 is like a running back 1, or a wide receiver 2 is like a linebacker 1, or just one of the top tier positions determined by your score in your league. You know, you might have some offset where you got a defensive lineman in the top 10 or something. That would be your top tier of all IDP. You never, ever expect to get a 1-for-1 match. It's not going to happen. You go ahead and you accept it. The best you're probably going to get if is considering it a IDP tier 2 versus a tier 1. So you're going to have to add to that IDP. And sometimes, you know, I've made a living out of this for a long time. Since learning IDP to the extent that I have, I burn my IDPs. I'll get those names, those Devin Whites, those any of them, and I tag them in. If I need an improvement on my football team, I'm using IDP names, top performers, and I'm packaging them together with a wide receiver 2, and I'm sending my linebacker 1, and I'm asking for a wide receiver 1, and I'm willing to negotiate even more. I'm going to use those guys, but I have the ability that I can find replacements that are suitable on IDP. They're out there every year. You might have to pick them up the first couple of weeks off the waiver wire. Talking about Campbell last year for the Packers, you're talking actually quite a long. I know that in a 16-team league, I got Logan Wilson and Holcomb off the waiver wire after the draft. I missed this draft. I'm talking about an IDP incentive. I'm sorry, Shane. I was getting ready to say next year, if we have any openings, I'm hoping you move on and get in our IDP incentive by Gridiron Ratings. It's a blast. Anyways, that is, I think, your main way of approaching it. Be willing to look like you overpaid if you really want to use those, because it's just, you're looking at the availability. There are a few running backs that are top tier, you're a few wide receivers and such, but your pool of IDP is so big, and that hair from this tier to this tier isn't as big as what you would think. So as long as you've got consistency, you can survive and improve your offense.
Cool.
Yeah. See, I actually go, so instead of trying to use the IDP player to sell and to go and get a better offensive player, I actually go the other way, because I know how easy it is for me to find a wide receiver or some other waiver wire player, right?
Okay.
So leverage your own knowledge base. If you know you have depth at wide receiver and you're comfortable enough, you say, hey, I can trade this wide receiver 2, and I can go land a linebacker 1 plus something else. Those are the kinds of trades I look for all the time. Yeah. So I have no qualms about going the other way, because how many receivers went for 100 targets last year? Ton of them, right?
Yeah.
Easy to find. I want to say it was north of 40. And you can find those guys. So take those guys, trade them off, get your higher level IDP player in exchange for them, plus a little something to sweeten it, right? Yep. You're getting more points in your lineup that way. And that wide receiver 2-3 guy that somebody's probably sweet on for a few weeks, he's replaceable. You can find his points in another player that's probably hanging out on the wire.
Okay, that's a good point.
Almost two strategies, but from two different points, from the defensive side or the offensive side.
Right.
Yeah. The issue that I struggle with is I have a ton of depth on the defensive side of the ball, usually, thanks to you, Gary, knowing who to draft late. And then it's like, okay, I have all this depth on the IDP side. What do I do with it? How? Because it's a lot of it.
How do you make it work for you?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right. That's how I make it work for me. You know, it's just the same concept, people. If you want to think about a value, look at it this way. I suggest you always, in a redraft or a startup or whatever, you fill your starting lineup first. You'll always fill your starting lineup first. So yeah, you might see Buckner go by, you might see Watt go by, you might see, but I always feel that you have to have, in most competitions, you've got to have a maximized offense, because the defense is about consistency. So that if you can even get those lower tier 1s or upper tier 2s, it's just got great consistency. Your offense is going to carry you. My offense in the IDP incentive last year, I had Hopkins, Evans, Diggs, Cup, Harris. I had Rodgers at quarterback. The best tight end ended up getting was Ertz. But I had that all filled out before I went for any IDP. And
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how you play to your strengths, just like Jeff was talking about.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yep. I say spend them. I'll find you more. Right.
Definitely.
All right. So why don't you go ahead and hit us up? I think you may have a 2A, something.
Yeah, I've got a 2A and a 2B. So
right.
the first part of the second question is, what is the difference in value of a superstar DB versus a mediocre linebacker that gets tackles? And I know, like you just said, a lot of I think what the answer is that's mediocre linebacker is consistently getting tackles. It's the consistency thing. But if you could elaborate on that a little bit for me, and then I'll hit you with 2B.
All right. Jeff, I took the first one last time.
Oh, man, I see how it is.
All right.
So, for me, it always boils down to lineup construction, right?
Okay.
So, if that superstar defensive back in a 16-team league is a guy that I can't replace his points easily, then that mediocre linebacker isn't a viable switch for me, even if he gets consistent tackles, because I can't replace the points at defensive back. I don't want to sacrifice losing that head-to-head battle at defensive back by trying to make up a few of the points at linebacker. It's always points in my lineup is what matters most. So if superstar defensive back, I don't know, Jamal Adams or Jesse Bates.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Right. So let's just say in your scoring format, it gets you 15 points a week. Okay. And it's a little up and down. Sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 8, it's all over the place. But that linebacker might only get you 10 a week, but you're getting 10 every week. It's a matter of looking at the rest of your roster and deciding, okay, wait, do I need the floor play of those 10 points, or do I want the blow up high ceiling week that Adams can give me at any given week? And so for me, it comes down to the construction of the lineup, and it comes down to the construction of my roster, where what do I need more of?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there's nothing I can add to that. I mean, that would have been exactly my same answer. I mean, you want to maximize each position by that consistency and total points. It doesn't matter if you have to end up constructing it in a matter where you have two LB1, you got 4 starting linebackers, you say, you got 2 LB1s, and you got 3 DB1s. You kind of take the best guy off the board for the consistency. I believe in maximizing. It's like we talk about sleepers sometimes with the dual designations.
Mm-hmm.
If they're marked an LB DB, I want to pay that player in a DB position because it's going to maximize. If that mediocre 2 linebacker play is all of a sudden the top DB play, that's what I'm shooting for. If that helps.
Yeah, no, that totally helps. Okay, so here's a question that's not on the show sheet for you.
That's not right, man. That's not right.
It's okay. This one should be easy. Is it a myth that DBs are easier to find versus those linebackers?
Oh, no. 9 times out of 10, to me, the leagues that I play in, I mean, even like the IDP incentives, the 16-team league. Now we do have shallowish benches to make sure that there's something on the waiver wire, make you work for it type thing. Yeah. I like an active league. I can normally pick them out per matchup in season with no problem. They can be a low end tier 2 type DB or so. And if the matchup is there, I don't have any hesitation of picking them up and playing them over maybe one of my other tier 2s that doesn't have one.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Normally I believe that there's more serviceable defensive backs and defensive linemen, more like defensive tackles that are out there on a matchup basis, just like we have in our start sit charts, more than just straight out saying that I value him more.
Cool.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I would say that, you can find DBs almost any given week. And something we're working on releasing for this season is actually a stability score for IDP. So
Nice.
when we talk about consistency, and that term gets thrown around a lot. The thing with consistency is that the NFL sample size is too small to really get a good sense of consistency. And fantasy production for any given position in fantasy football, especially IDP, isn't truly sticky year over year. So as we start looking at those things like, okay, well, how do we find stability and which guys are more stable than others? Well, defensive backs are highly unstable compared to linebackers, edge rushers, defensive ends, and so on. Meaning we can go ahead and play that matchup, pull up the start-sit charts the tipster runs with, pull up his rolling waiver wire every week, and find those guys that kind of fit the criteria for your league, and that's how you'll be able to find those guys without question all year long. It's as you're drafting, what you really need to look at is make sure you load up on those defensive end edge rushers and get one of those sub linebackers early, because the edge rushers, they are the top performs really, really well, and they're fairly consistent, fairly stable, sticky. But then once you get past the top 8, 9, 10 of those guys, it gets really dicey. So if you miss on that guy, it can really hurt you in your week-to-week matchup. Because if you've got the 12th best guy, right, and you're playing everybody every week, kicking your ass in that slot, that's points you have to make up at another position somewhere, and it just makes it puts you in a deficit every week.
And I think it's evolved. IDP's evolved with the changes in the NFL over the years, and in that the way the poll. He's perfectly right. If I'm in a draft from this point on, I draft all of my offensive players, and then I turn around and the first thing I'm going to look at is probably defensive line. It's probably the scarcest, just like he was mentioning, and that's who I'm going to look at. And it's going to take there not being any decent ones in that top number for me to go move on. I don't care if Darius Leonard's there. It's just the scarcity of the position, the amount of guys that really matter. Because I can make up for Darius Leonard, not quite, but I'm still looking for the rarest position with the highest cap or highest average, highest consistency.
If Gary can kick your ass by 4 points at defensive end or edge rusher every week and only lose you by 1 or 2 points at linebacker, he's still positive a few points every week. So he's operating at a certain is the moral of the story there.
Yep.
No, that makes total sense.
Yep. I've actually gotten to the position where I'll go ahead, and if I get my DL, if he's there after I fill my linebackers and my DLs, then I'll go ahead and decide to take in on whatever's left of the DBs. Because just like we just got done talking about, they're streamable and they're available.
Yeah.
So I can cover my ass with that, knowing how to do that. So anyways, that's just my preference.
Gotcha. Well, that's a great segue, Gary. So going back to the 2A with the superstar DB versus the mediocre linebacker that's consistently getting tackles, which do you guys prefer in that situation?
No preference. Whoever's going to give it to me.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
Yep. I want the most points in my lineup every week. If I need that mediocre linebacker, like if I'm desperate at linebacker and that's going to be my number one guy, then maybe I go get him. But I don't want to, if I've got 5 deep guys at defensive back and I can sacrifice that superstar and I can go get that mediocre guy to be my linebacker 2 where I need him in a starting slot, need obviously drives quite a bit and I might be willing to pay up. But for the most part, I'm with Gary. I don't have a real preference on it. I just want to make sure I'm putting the most points in my lineup every single week, because if I beat you on defense, I'm going to beat you more weeks than not, because offense is always going to be a lot closer.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Before we move on, the only thing that I probably could add to that is that I don't really value IDP the same as some of the others. I know I'm actually a touch behind the new wave with there's been that movement that I mentioned with the NFL, and it's really took an impact, I think, in the overall last 5 or 6 years, allowing more friendly plays for the offense. They want bigger scores, and the whole generation changes hit those defensive linemen, and then just don't worry about it as much as what you would about your offense. I think that if you have that gumption and you're willing to play the waiver wire, you can do it. You can do it. It's not that hard. I think people make IDP out about names and everything at the first part. It's not to me. I try to help a lot of people that way. But anyways, enough about me stammering along. I'm going to crash that way. We're going to move right into these rookies. All right. And this is
Hold on, I got one more question.
Oh, man.
Gary's driving the bus off the side of the bridge right now.
Yeah.
No, he's just shoving me out the window over the cliff.
Yeah. Get out the bus.
So, what are key physical tools to focus on when scouting IDP, specifically with linebackers?
Oh, I'm definitely passing this on to Jeff because Jeff watches that film on these rookies like you wouldn't believe. And me personally, this is all I'm going to say. I usually don't watch that much film until the off season, and I'm looking at these guys that are like free agents and all this stuff. I'm not looking at Darius Leonard. I'm not. So the only thing that really matters to me is these guys can or can't they coverage, because if they're mediocre at it, I think they're going to be in a position that if they can't cover, they're going to have opportunity for tackles. If it's a guy playing in the run stopping role, I want to see what kind of missed tackles. Can he shed a block? Can he get through blocks? Can he, I'm going to let Jeff sum this up because the way that he'll define it will just cover the same thing that I'm getting ready to say. But I don't do it on rookies.
So I scout these guys as if I was an NFL GM, and I try to evaluate the things that are most important. And for me, everyone wants athleticism, right? They want 40 times and agility scores and all this kind of stuff. When I watch the tape, I want to see, where's the guy looking? I want to see where his read is. And I'm clicking the film as I'm going here. And I want to see, are his eyes in the right place? And is his first step towards the point of attack? Is he going to be where the ball is? Is he headed the right direction on that first step? And how often does that happen? Because I want a guy that has great football IQ, or football intelligence. You'll hear it called that all the time. That is the most important attribute in my eyes, because you don't have to be the biggest, strongest guy in the league. You don't have to be the fastest guy in the league. What you have to be is the guy who's best at being in the right place at the right time in the league. And that's where you start seeing these guys where it's like, Darius Leonard wasn't a first-round pick, everybody. I mean, this is the guy, you're talking, he was, a second-rounder, I think. But still, no one talked about him before the draft. No one was like, oh, my God, Darius Leonard's the best thing ever. He came into the league with great football intelligence. He's in the right place at the right time, has great fluidity. So as you get past football intelligence, you start talking about, can he get his hips around? Is he smooth in coverage? Do his feet, hips, and eyes all match? When he's getting around in coverage, does he get lost when a guy gets behind him? Can he maintain spatial awareness? Like, these are all things that, in my background, I spent some time in coaching, at least at the high school level. I spent some time working for, Iowa State as a Division I undergrad assistant. So, I had a chance to sit with NFL scouts and absorb the way they watch these players. And these are all kind of the intangible things that we need to be worried about. And I want to know where that first step is headed. I want to know how their spatial awareness is, because all of these things that don't relate to tackling and don't relate to physical attributes, they're all pieces I can't teach. I can't teach you to be fast. I can't teach you to be, I can teach you how to get to the right place. But if I have to teach you instincts, that's a problem. If it's not instinctual and you need to be sitting there like learning it, you're moving slower. If you run 4.4, but you have to think about where you're going, you're running 4.6 on the field. Yeah. But a guy with great instincts will turn 4.6 into 4.4 in a hurry. Right. And so that's what it is for me. I want those instincts.
Okay, cool.
All right. So we'll go ahead and roll on now. And we'll talk about those rookies. And again, I was getting ready to say, I'm just going to kind of step back, let Jeff do his thing. He's our resident IDP rookie specialist. I am not. And I there's nothing that I could add to this other than maybe saying, hey, he might go good here or he might go good there, because I'm going to wait till after the draft. I'm going to let him do all the work for you now. So Shane, take it away. Who you want to start with?
I got to start with my boy out of Auburn, Roger McCreary.
See, you would go to a corner defensive back, wouldn't you? You'd have to go there. So from a fantasy standpoint, McCreary's not going to do much for us unless, of course, you're in a league that demands you start a cornerback. He's going to end up being a slot in the NFL. He's going to have to run a good 40. A lot of folks project him in kind of the 4.44, 4.45 range. He looks faster. than that on film, especially in man press. I'd like to see him bulk up a little bit. I feel like he gets gobbled up a little too easily in traffic. He's not really an NFL capable tackler at this point. Definitely a guy, though, that can man press without question. I think he can lock up a number one. He has the skills to be a number one corner on the perimeter where he can play with anybody. And I love how fluid his hips and head are. He can get around, get his hands in the line of fire for the ball. I'd like to see a little bit better hands, turning more of those passes defensed into interceptions. But you know what? Here's the thing. An incomplete pass is still ticking over that down marker. And I'll take that on third down just as much as an interception. So good-looking prospect from an NFL standpoint. I think he'll start his career as a slot. They're going to need to bulk him up a little bit, get him on the perimeter, especially against bigger receivers. He's got a really limited upside for fantasy just because he's not going to tackle much. But if you get a ton of points for interceptions, pass defense, things like that, he'll be very useful, especially if tackles are, say, D-weighted and you're in a single point per tackle league, but 6 points for an interception, 6 points for a pass defense. He'll be useful at that point.
Okay, cool. I love his closing speed. Like, it feels like sometimes he's not in the picture, and then all of a sudden he is there breaking up that pass, and I love that.
I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to see him as one of those guys that touches kind of the lower end of 4.4. His projected is 4.4, 4.45. On film, he looks faster. So we talked about the instincts.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a football instinct, taking the right angles. He does have great closing speed. I kind of wonder if he's going to come in and run like a 4.4 flat.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't shock me. If he came in and ran 4.4, 4.39 even, it would not surprise me in the slightest.
Awesome.
When it comes to cornerbacks, I'm going to tell you about that. You started off with one of them. They are so – I'm going to give you some advice. Don't draft them. Don't acquire them. Don't sink a lot of depth into them. Don't just stream them through the season, because usually at the beginning of the season in most formats, you just wait a week or two, and all of a sudden some guy's going to pop up that's gotten his opportunity. He's mediocre. They're targeting him, and you're going to be able to pick that guy up and put him on and maybe leave him. There are hardly any set and forget IDP as there was about 10 years ago. You could put some solid guys in and never take them out of your lineup, and you was always coming out ahead. It doesn't work that way. And especially with cornerbacks, they are really fluky on their own. So you just kind of want to, if you was drafting tomorrow, if you have to have them on your roster, you carry the minimal, and just let the waiver wire. Now, I understand there are leagues out there that's got 50 roster spots. Now, that's a whole nother can of worms. So don't try that on this one. But that's the one thing I wanted to mention about cornerbacks in the IDP.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Don't soak a ton of time, effort, money, capital into corners. However, I spent a 7th rounder last year, a 7th round rookie pick. It's a pretty deep rookie draft, on Patrick Surtain.
Nice.
And so a 7th rounder, but what I did is at the trade deadline, I turned around and flipped him for a 3rd rounder.
Nice. Nice.
I'll do it. Well, people were throwing at him. He was getting picks. He's on SportsCenter. People recognize him, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't mind taking a cornerback in a really deep rookie draft, or picking them up off the waiver wire and just stashing them on my bench. And if they start blowing up, flipping them in season.
Yeah.
Because every team will test a rookie corner.
Yeah. We're getting ready to do our keeper. It's a keeper league and IDP incentive. And I guarantee you, when we get ready to do this redraft on veterans here in the next month or two, cornerback, because I have to have them. I did stick 2 of them in there. It's the only league that I play with cornerbacks anymore. They're going to be my last 2 picks. As soon as the waiver wire opens up and the draft's over, I'm dropping them and picking up some better flyers. And then I worry about 2 weeks before that. I'm like, all right, let's do these startup matchups and see what's going on. I'm telling you, don't sink a big investment in them.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to go to a different defensive back, and that's Kyle Hamilton out of my other favorite school.
Oh, that's all right.
So I'm a huge Notre Dame fan. My grandfather went to Notre Dame as well. So Kyle Hamilton, talk to me.
He's the best prospect in this draft, offense or defense, period.
Flag planted. Bam.
Boom. I've put it there. And it's not, and I'd say it's not close. It's not entirely true. He and Aidan Hutchinson are the number 1 and number 2 prospects, offense or defense, period. Kyle Hamilton, you're talking about a guy who's 6'4", 220, and he's going to light the combine on fire. He's going to get close to a 12-foot broad jump, 40-inch vert. He's probably going to run 4.4, maybe even a shade faster. Incredible instincts, incredible closing speed. He's got great ball skills. This guy is one of the few players that can step up from 12 yards deep and still make a play in the backfield. He is unbelievable. Anybody that wants to see his skills on display, go watch the Florida State game. Notre Dame tried like hell to piss that game away. And Kyle Hamilton willed them to victory. So they, at every turn, they tried to give it away. And Kyle Hamilton willed them to victory. He had tackles for loss. He had interceptions, passes defense. He was all over the field. So imagine if Isaiah Simmons and Sean Taylor had just throw them in a blender and you poured the player out, it would be Kyle Hamilton.
Oh, my God.
He hits like a truck. My God. He's got all the athleticism that's out there. Every time I turn on his film, and I'm a Notre Dame guy too, so it's not so much fandom as much as I watch them because we're on national TV. I do like Notre Dame, but he is the eraser. That is his new nickname. I'm going to start coining that. We call Kyle Hamilton the eraser because he erases errors in the front seven. Notre Dame continually would screw up reads in the front seven, and there's Kyle Hamilton cleaning up the mess, erasing the problem. And love Kyle Hamilton. I will be hard-pressed in at least 2 of my IDP leagues to not take him in the first round.
Okay.
Wow. That's because I don't love a lot of the offensive prospects in this draft. If we're just calling it what it is, I think the running backs are a little overrated. I think the wide receivers might be a little overrated. There's a couple of my tight ends actually really good. Really like Kyle Hamilton. Really like a few of these other defensive guys too. If you get the chance to put a Hall of Fame level player on your IDP squad or even on your offensive squad, you should always take it. Kyle Hamilton, he has a Hall of Fame level profile right now.
Wow. Shane, let me ask, who's your favorite team?
So I've got 2. I get made fun of a lot because I have multiple favorite teams in a lot of sports. So for college, it's Auburn and Notre Dame. So,
okay. Professional.
Professional. It's the Browns, the Cowboys, and the Packers.
Wow. I was going to say, I really would love to see for Jeff. I was getting ready to mention, I don't think Dallas can get him. Browns don't need him. And who was the third?
Packers.
I'm not sure what Amos is. Is Hamilton more of a free safety or in the box type of guy, or does it matter?
He can play either. Doesn't matter. I bet he ends up being, depending on the coverage type, he's probably going to be playing deep.
Then how about the 49ers? You got Tart and Ward. No, you don't see them like.
Well, I would love it. As a 49ers fan, I'd love it. Here's the thing. He's going to be off the board in the first 5 to 10 picks.
Okay.
So he's going to be gone. You can expect this draft is going to end up being some combination of, Hutchinson, Thibodeaux, Neal, Charles Cross, Hamilton. Like these, you're going to have a bunch of linemen, a bunch of defensive players. I'm looking at the Jets. Honestly, I think that's going to be the fit, and you can put him on the back end of Saleh's defense. And you've got Marcus May back there is 30 now or 29. I mean, he's not exactly young anymore. You moved on from Jamal Adams. Marcus Joyner was hurt. He was the big free agent ad.
No. Don't get sad though, Shane, because Dallas they got a huge amount of free agents at the safety position. You're looking at Kirsch. You're looking at who else? Neal's Kazee. Kazee and Hooker. So you got all these guys. It's a possibility. We do know that Dallas will draft defense. If he sleeps that far, I don't know where Dallas is at. They're way at the end. Jeff's pretty well sold it. He's not slipping that far.
He's going to be gone in the top 5, top 10 at the latest.
Right. Hey, anyways. All right. Who else we got?
So I'm actually going to go out of order from the list that I gave you because you already mentioned that you like him a lot. Aidan Hutchinson.
All right. So Aidan Hutchinson looks a lot, and this is kind of lazy, and I really hate it. He looks a lot like Nick Bosa.
Ooh, okay. Now you got my attention now.
So looks a lot like Nick Bosa. This guy's got incredible hand coordination in terms of the way he uses his feet and his hands to keep blockers off balance. He can beat you with power. He can beat you with speed. He's got really nice bend coming around the edge. He's got a motor that just doesn't quit. He's tenacious is probably the word I would use most. He shows up in the biggest games. Go check out his film against Ohio State. That was their biggest game. Forget the playoffs. Yeah. Ohio State is the game for Michigan. Yeah. And he showed up and showed out in a very serious way. My only concern is that he didn't exactly play against the creme de la creme of offensive linemen in the Big Ten. It seemed like he was always lined up against inferior players.
Including Ohio State.
But at least they have a draftable tackle that's coming out of this class. So that was the only NFL potentially caliber player. The other guys are not NFL caliber. They won't be drafted. So he really lit some people up. He was the best player on the field very consistently. But you can't teach the instincts and the speed. The guy is off the ball like a absolute bullet. I don't know that he has the same turning speed to power potential that Nick Bosa had, because Bosa played against some really top flight competition in college, and we really got to see it on display. Hutchinson looks a lot like him, but he's playing against inferior talent, so it leaves a few question marks. I don't love the way he drops into zone. He looks a little bit lost. It could be a coaching thing because they didn't ask him to do it very often. Where you let the end kind of slide off and take away the swing route or something like that. He looks clumsy and uncoordinated out there. He should either be, 4-3 end, get his hand in the dirt, or he can go ahead and be a stand-up. And if you're running like a 4-2-5, or if you're in a position where you go an odd front and you leave him on the, on the rush side, this is a guy that should be used as a rusher. Let him get after the quarterback. He has incredible moves. He can pair up, a couple different hand swats. He can stick his foot in the ground, beat you with a spin, get you with a bull rush. A really well-refined set of pass rush moves.
Awesome.
I just don't know. And like I said, love him. I want to see him against more top flight talent. And I think that'll really unleash him a little bit. I think that tenacity will come out to another level. Appears to be coachable too. So that's always a good sign. You see that in his advancement and the way his pass rush moves improved from, freshman to sophomore. He only had a couple snaps as a sophomore in junior year.
Gotcha. Yeah, when you said he looks like Nick Bosa, you caught my attention there, because as a Browns fan and you being a 49ers fan, I'm sure you know that when they played in 2019, Nick Bosa ate Baker Mayfield's lunch, dinner, and breakfast for the next day, pretty much the entire game. Yep. So yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can't draft a Michigan guy, but hey, sounds like a good prospect. I'm a Ohio State Buckeye fan,
That's all right. We won't hold it against you.
Hey, there's a lot of good football players coming out of there. A lot of good football. A lot of crazy coaching stuff in the prior years, but
yeah, we've seen some of that.
Yeah. Hey, it's not like Harbaugh's, like sitting anywhere.
Don't you besmirch Jim Harbaugh. We loved what he did in San Francisco. How dare you?
Yeah, right.
All right, I'm going to go back one on the list now. Let's talk about Kayvon Thibodeaux.
So a lot of people are sweet on Thibodeaux. He's going to test very well in Mobile. Jeez, I'm stuck in the Senior Bowl still in Indianapolis. The combine, he's going to test really well. I think he's going to put up a lot of bench reps. He's going to run well. He's going to do all the things you'd expect a guy to do in the gym. Something's not right between the ears. He's got the skill is there. I think the instincts are there. But I feel like his motor isn't there. I feel he gives up on too many plays. He doesn't seem like he wants it as bad as some of the other guys. I look back really at his games against Utah specifically. They tore him apart. And it's not even like they were triple teaming him or anything like that. He was giving up on one-on-ones. He was getting chipped by a running back, and you just see him kind of bail out on the play. It just didn't seem like he had the want to or the desire. Maybe he was nicked up. I don't know. But he didn't show up in the big games the way you wanted him to. Incredible bend, great burst, very fast. He's going to go really early. I think he's going to get overdrafted in a lot of IDP leagues. I really want to see this guy, show up and show me something in the NFL level, because right now I'm looking at him and I'm like, I'm not sold. I need to see a little bit more. This time last year, I loved him, and I was thinking this guy's going to be the number one pick on the draft. Like, this is the Kayvon Thibodeaux sweepstakes for number one. And now I'm watching his film from this past season. And I'm like, who's this guy? It's not even the same player we saw the year before. And I can't put my finger on it. I'm not in the locker room, so I don't want to speculate on injuries and, other things that might be going on. But, maybe he was making a business decision. I have no idea. Fact is, the film wasn't great. Had a couple decent games, but I wanted to see more, more consistency. And I want to see him, showing up in those monster games where you need him.
Yeah, totally. All right. If I remember correctly, another Michigan man here, David Ojabo.
Ojabo's a guy that, again, he's not going to be Thibodeaux, or he's not going to be Hutchinson, rather. He's not going to be that guy. Standalone pass rusher, just bring it. I want to see him be that alpha dog a little bit more. When Hutch was off the field, Ojabo was able to play and do well. My only concern is he more of a Bud Dupree or a TJ Watt? And Bud Dupree is kind of what I call the Robin to TJ Watt's Batman, right? We hear about that in wide receivers. Pass rushers can be the same way. Ojabo can step back into coverage a little bit more fluidly. I like the way he can get his hips around. He can take care of the flat. I don't expect him to be a guy that's going to be relied on in coverage frequently. Reliable pass rusher. He's going to go in the top 15, 20 picks pretty easily. And if he could be the second pass rusher on a team, he's going to be an absolute animal. If he's catching, if he's the number one guy and he's catching that left tackle, or if he's catching double teams and they're taking him out of the play, I don't think he's got the actual strength to fight it off. He doesn't have the block shedding capability, and he lacks the explosiveness to take that play to another level. Now, a year in an NFL weight room could change that.
Yeah.
So, and Michigan's, facilities, despite what Gary might tell you, are world class, and I'm sure they got him bulked up from high school, and they had very good player. I like him a lot. I don't love him for IDP fantasy. I think he's going to be a good NFL player. I'm not racing to the front of the line to go get him in IDP.
Okay. All right. Next is Leo Chenal.
See, you brought this guy. I feel like every week I get hit with some guy that I haven't watched nearly enough of. I've got Chenal somewhere between 5 and 10, depending on how you like some of these other guys. Like Brian Asamoah is a really, a similarly ranked player. I just happen to have watched more of Asamoah. So I have a little bit more background on him. The thing with Chenal is what I don't know about him yet, frankly, is how well he gets that first step in. So why don't we slam pause on him for now? Let me watch a little bit more film. That's always, I always get that one guy, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say let's sit on him, Wisconsin product. I'll get it back around to Big Ten film real soon.
Okay, sounds good. All right, then I'll throw it to Pac-12, I think. Pac-10, whatever they are now. Who knows? Devin Lloyd.
Oh, yeah. So Devin Lloyd is going to be the prototypical. Gary likes to call these guys productive by default. Absolute tackle monster. It's what he does. He is a super reliable tackler. He has the power to jar the ball loose and to blow people up in the middle of the field. Imagine a more athletic Brandon Spikes, if you're old enough to remember who Brandon Spikes is. I like him a lot. I don't think he covers that well. As I watch him get into space, it seems like when anybody gets behind him, he gets a little bit lost. In today's NFL, where you need to be on the field for 3 downs and you have to be able to cover, he's going to need a little bit more development there. It's not that he's not fluid. I think he just gets lost, and that inhibits his ability to get around. And some people call it stiffness. I don't know that he's really stiff. I think he's actually pretty athletic. But what I want to see more of is him understanding the space he's in, because he's so reliable tackling from sideline to sideline. He's got the speed and lateral movement to get to wherever he needs to be, but it's where he has to gain more depth and take care of a tight end who's running down the seam. When he has to take care of a dig route and cover 2 or something like that, those are all problems for a middle backer. And I don't know if he's going to be a middle backer true, or if they're going to move him to like a weak side type position. And so landing spot's going to be clutch. I like Lloyd. I don't love him as much as a guy like Nakobe Dean. And I think really, as we're looking at linebackers, it's going to be, Lloyd will be the number 2 linebacker off the board in IDP.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he's that much better than a handful of other guys that would be kind of right behind him.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about Nakobe Dean then.
Okay. So Nakobe Dean is undersized. Like, let's just start there, because everyone's going to bang on him for being 220, 225 pounds. He's explosive. This guy is fast. He's fluid. He's all over the field. He can play sideline to sideline. He can stuff the run. He plays bigger and heavier than he is, because 6 foot 225 is not exactly bringing a load, right? But he's fluid in space. He can cover. We got to see it in the national college football playoffs. He's out there making plays, against Alabama in the pass game, swatting balls away. He's getting interceptions, 2 or 3 interceptions this year. Didn't wow you with his final tackle numbers. He only had like 70 tackles or something each of the last 2 years. But on that Georgia defense, there's so many players and so many guys getting tackles all the time. I think his lack of statistical productivity is just a result of all the other ballers around him.
Yeah.
If you switched him and Devin Lloyd, I feel like their productivity would be about the same. I think, Nakobe Dean would have put up 120 tackles a year without question, and Lloyd's numbers would have fallen off the table pretty considerably. So what I'm looking for is, we talk about the instincts, right? Dean does a nice job first step. He's got great quickness, and he can close on a play in the blink of an eye. So if you're trying to run, outside zone and you're trying to beat him to the edge, good luck. I hope you got Derrick Henry, because if you don't, Dean's about to blow you up in the backfield.
Yeah.
And he might take on Derrick Henry. He's given up about 30 pounds and about 5 inches. So
yeah, for sure.
But he'll be the number one linebacker. Truthfully, he should be the number 3 IDP player off the board. So for me, it's Hamilton, it's Hutch, and then it's Nakobe Dean. Okay. Yep, in that order. And then you're going to see guys like, Thibodeau's going to pop off the board. Lloyd will pop off the board. Ojabo will be in that group. You're going to see a bunch of these guys that I'm kind of so about. And then we'll get into, there'll be a bunch of other guys that are going to have a lot of upside you can get into.
So out of the 3, who do we expect to perform first year to a level that you can use them in IDP consistently? Who would you? It's a moneymaker. It depends where they fall. It's all that. There's so many other things that will come into play as time goes on and we find out where these guys go. But if you had to bet on it, who do you think would lead the 3 in production in IDP their first season if they had the opportunity?
Kyle Hamilton.
All right.
I knew he was going to say that.
I know. I just dragged that question out.
Anybody who's been watching this show for the last several weeks is already like, this guy. Jeez, we know he loves Kyle Hamilton. Shut this guy up.
Flag right here.
It's planted in concrete right here. Right. So, here's the thing. He's going to start from day one. Even if he goes, I've seen him mocked as high as number 2 or number 3 in different mock drafts for guys like Todd McShay and Bookie Brooks and some of these guys for like NFL Network and ESPN. He's going to go early, and he's going to light up the combine, and it's going to turn into a situation where, I'm not saying he can't go number 1 because it's possible, but no matter where he goes, he has the football IQ and the physical skills to show up and ball out today.
Nice.
And so, and then the next guy is going to be Hutch, and then the next guy is Nakobe Dean. Now, Dean might get more fantasy points because linebacker, but I feel like Hutch is the kind of guy that can show up and get you 8 sacks. So if you're in a sack-heavy league, go get Hutch and plant him in as your DL2 and be thrilled.
Shane, you got any more for us?
I actually did. I thought of one.
Oh, wow.
Not on
you
the
guys are nonstop on these rookies.
Curveball for you here. But I'll give you a hint.
Uh-oh.
It is from one of my 2 favorite teams in college.
He's got to be talking to you.
Out of Auburn.
See, we looking for a guy out of Auburn?
Smoke Monday out of Auburn.
Oh, Smoke Monday. So I currently don't have him in my top 5 safeties. I don't have him in my top 7
That
DBs.
doesn't surprise me, to be honest.
Yeah, so, and it's not that I don't think he can play. I've only watched 2 games where he was there. He wasn't the primary player I was scouting, truthfully. What I want to see is a little bit more zone discipline. And these are just off the top takes. Like, I did not out this guy. So a little bit more zone discipline. And there's a couple of times where he got a little grabby in coverage. Yeah, it's in between the ear stuff. And so he didn't jump out at me as a guy where I'm like, ooh, that's top-end NFL talent. That's an IDP guy I want to go get.
Yeah.
He wasn't there. Not that he's a bad player. He just might not be for us.
So he's another corner.
No, he's a safety.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
The reason I was asking, because isn't this a pretty rich QB class? That's what I keep hearing or reading, or they're saying. What?
Did you say QB class or CB class?
CB. I meant cornerback. Yeah. Don't let that dirty O creep in here.
He said QB.
Oh,
he said
cornerback. Dirty O.
Shane again.
Darn. All right. Is that true? Is this a cornerback heavy league? Or
I think this draft has got 4 or 5 legitimate NFL starters at corner. These guys aren't going to be IDP relevant, but the number 1 guy, is going to end up being Derek Stingley. He didn't have great film, recently. His best tape comes from 2019 when he was a true freshman. There was a lot. He was so good. Yeah. So here's the thing. Anybody who's worried about 2020 with the opt-outs and 2021 with the lack of production, there was a lot of bad stuff happening at LSU in the background. It seemed like there was a lot of discontent. There was a lot of stuff happening in the locker room. So really, I just kind of throw that film away because, frankly, we don't know what was going on there, especially when I see that immense, like he was a shutdown, lockdown. When I saw him play as a freshman, I said, holy crap, this guy's going to be Champ Bailey. Yeah. It didn't even occur to me that he would have a drop off. But I mean, then COVID happened, and then now you got all the.
I think he was injured into this past year too.
Right, he was nicked up, and there was some other stuff happening that, like, I don't know the depth of his injury. Like, anytime there's a team that's got a bunch of malcontent, you got coaching changes, injuries tend to linger a little bit longer.
Yeah,
business decisions. Yeah, business decisions set in pretty quickly. So. He's a guy I love a lot. You got the Booth kid looks pretty good. I really want to see Kyer Elam transition. I think he can be a legit corner. I don't know how they're going to classify him at the next level. He can play safety and corner, but I think lost the earpiece. Man down.
Pull him back in.
Yeah. So. I think Elam can play. I just like him a lot. He can play on, corner, safety. I think in today's league, you got to kind of be able to transition anyway. I liked him a little bit. I'm trying to think. Like, I'm missing somebody here that's obvious, and my brain's going south. What's that? Oh yeah, we got McCreary. Yeah, we just talked about McCreary. Yeah, he's gonna be a really good player. But there's probably 5 or 6 corners, and I don't look at corners as much simply because we don't really use them in IDP that often.
Yeah. It wasn't an IDP question. It wasn't an IDP question. It was a purely NFL curious, tell me about it kind of question because I'm not using them.
We all know full well that you want to hear about corners because you have a secret man crush on the cornerback position. We all know that's the case.
No. I'm so glad.
Ahmad Gardner.
Yes.
That's
Sauce Gardner and then Kobe Bryant too.
Yep. Trent McDuffie's another one. Kyler Gordon, what about Darian Kendrick out of Georgia? Like, all these guys are legit prospects, and the combine is going to separate them. Right. Yeah. And I think when these guys run and jump and they get in the underwear Olympics and they do all this stuff, that's when we're going to see some separation. And they get you there, underwear Olympics.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we're going to see some separation, and really like a lot of those guys. If you're playing in a league that rewards cornerback play for some reason, I like Stingley a lot. I like him as an NFL player. He'll be gone in the top probably 12 to 15 picks, but real nice player, especially if he could play opposite of somebody else. I don't know if somehow Cleveland could manage to pop him in opposite of God, who's our number one? My brain, see, corners. My brain shuts down. Denzel Ward, thank you.
Oh,
and they got Greg Newsome too.
Yeah, and they spent a first rounder on Newsome.
That kid can play.
He sure can.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Do they? I'm wondering in the NFL, not IDP, if they're just going to let some of these cornerbacks slip down. If they take the top couple in the first round, and then after that they start sliding on down because there's going to be other positions, that are more valuable with less players in it. Smaller pool. It's Shane. If you got another one for us, we'll go ahead and do it. But we're getting on our time limit, so
no. I just had really kind of a general question of prospects. Like, who are some deeper prospects that you would recommend to people looking for from an IDP standpoint?
A guy that I think is going to get passed up by a lot of people is a defensive lineman from Georgia, Devontae Wyatt.
Okay.
This is a guy that's going to go. He's going to sneak into the back end of the first round, and I think he might be the best defensive lineman from the University of Georgia to come into the draft. And we know that Jordan Davis and Trayvon Walker and some of these guys are coming out. This guy can be a 3-tech in the NFL. He can play that defensive tackle spot, or you can push him out. I think he can play a 4-eye or a 5 technique, get him out as a 4-3 defensive end. He's got great hands, great feet, and he is an absolute disruptor. He can convert speed and leverage. He's not a real tall guy, so he gets great leverage underneath offensive linemen. He can push guys around. It's not uncommon if you go back and watch UGA's film. I was trying to watch Jordan Davis, and I kept watching Wyatt throwing guards into quarterbacks, and it was distracting. I was like, dude, stop for a minute. I'm not trying to watch you. But if you've got a league that looks for IDL, interior defensive line, he's an absolute locked-in stud. Depending on where he lands, he could be classified as a D end. Again, he's a guy where you're going to plant him probably in your taxi squad in Dynasty for a year, but he's a dude that's going to play. Excuse me.
Bless
Thank you. It's but no, really love what I saw from him. He's not going to come out and do 55 bench reps or do anything nuts like that. He's going to be strong enough, but I love his leverage on the field. He doesn't show me great strength, but he shows me great hands, good punch, explosive feet, great first step, no trouble beating a guy. He can shed blocks in the outside zone. So if you're trying to get around him, well, you better be running the toss play, and you might have a quick running back, because if you don't, he's going to be right there making a play. Like him quite a bit. So that might be somebody to take a look at.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, I think we're going to wrap this up. Shane, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to encourage everybody out there to go to Twitter and follow him at FF Shane B. Give him a follow, and then check out his bio, and you can go and check out the Fantasy Nightcap and Fantasy Kollectiv. And the Fantasy Kollectiv is a fantasy. That's your baby, right? That's what you founded.
Yeah, the collective I founded with it was myself. It was me, Fox, Nick Sarnelli, Wardy, and then the Fantasy Football Tycoon. We all founded the collective.
Nice. Yeah, good. Like I said, go follow him at FF Shane B, and make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube below, folks. Check out our description on here. We've got Spotify and everything added in there for you. Of course, you're probably maybe checking us out on Twitter right now. Make sure you follow Gridiron Ratings. That's how you're going to keep up on the Getting Defensive podcast this year. That's our parent account that we're merging with. I don't want to say merging with. It's yours. It's ours. But we're putting these two counts together. And we're asking you to go to Gridiron Ratings and follow them at Gridiron Rating.
Gary, are you okay?
No,
Gary, have you been drinking?
Man, no, that's just it. And I have been sitting here listening about some rookies, though. Yeah.
His brain's starting to melt from all the rookie talk, is what it is.
Right. All right. The only thing I got out of it is I want to draft Hamilton.
Yes.
I want to draft Hamilton if at all possible. All right. Do you have any final thoughts for us, Shane?
Yeah. Only thing that I'd love to plug is the charity tournament that I run, Polly's Playoff. It's a tournament to end Alzheimer's. Registration for that is open, and the sign-up link and rules link are both on my pinned account or pinned tweet on my account. So, Jeff, I think you played last year, but I can't remember for certain. If not, you at least plugged it for me because we were in the Green Day division together.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, yeah, it's going on year 3. I might actually sneak in some ID3P this year.
Yeah? Everybody got a kicker. But I love it, man. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, so might sneak in some IDP because it's year 3 and that rhymes. So. But yeah, go check that on my pinned tweet, and if you
add 1-4,
get in,
add 1-5, IDP. Hey, that's a great call. You guys go make sure that you check out his pinned tweet at Shane. I'm going to say it again, at FF Shane B. All right, and Jeff, anything for us in final thoughts?
Yes, let's just say folks can't sign up for the league for whatever reason. Can they just make a donation to your cause? Do you have a link
absolutely. I do. I can get you one.
Perfect, because we'd be happy to plug that for you and see if we can round up some donations, because not everybody has the personal bandwidth for an extra league, but we definitely want to help out. So
right. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Appreciate that.
All right, from everybody here at Getting Defensive, I want to wish everybody adieu.
What's wrong with the do I have?